Creatura. I have been writing Criatura, creature, or someone who is growing up in Latin America or including Mexico, a child to myself, but it would be like a homeless niño or niña to them. Uh, what they owe is to pay out property because they can't afford it because they're too small. Um, I don't have the criatura solved yet in Central America, Costa Rica. I do have that somebody put too much karma on myself for the size of who they are, how they were formed, and where they were, and what they did with themselves was not unusual in my lifetime, but it was unacceptable in my lifetime. Her name is Magali Sibaha, and she also said Gutierrez, but the second time I went to Costa Rica, she said Magali and Sibaha, and she didn't use the name Gutierrez. And I still had problems with her I didn't really need because it was Central America, Costa Rica. I don't have citizenship to live there. It was temporary, and she gave me too much trouble for the size of myself. She has some small boy she was talking about through the mail. We wrote letters to each other. She sent me somebody's name is Luis Felipe, and I don't have it paid for that the postage was received. I realized that she sent it with postage, that's true, but the postmark for the receiving of the mail in the United States, I don't have that paid for as an American, and it was due for me to receive the letter. So therefore, I don't have the small boy in full custody of myself because I was abducted, and I'm not a small boy. I was abducted as a full height, full grown, and I was fully financially independent female in Tucson, Arizona. And I'd been financially independent for a number of years already. That wasn't supposed to be anything different. I realized that my parents locked me out of my house again, but they've done it before. And that's why I wasn't really anticipating I would have this much trouble trying to pay for my own way in life, but I have to pay for it without using my house anymore as leverage because of having a mom and a dad inside my house, and they locked me out. I have it reported to the emergency room of suburban Illinois, outside of Chicago, Illinois. I have it reported that my parents were in the emergency room with myself, and they're alive that way that I am locked out of my house. And the parents were not taken by the emergency room into custody, and that they should pay out a key to myself, or if they don't, that they just go to prison and there's nothing I can do about the house. But they didn't put my parents in prison from the emergency room, and my parents don't deserve the amount of karma that was the outcome. Though they walked in there willingly, they absolutely were free to walk in there, and the hospital was due to surprise them to give them a death on themselves that they were put in prison, upstate Illinois. And that's the order I'm going to make, but I'm not going to succeed because they didn't uphold the time it is for me to add in the grace. I realize they believe in me, they believe in my grace, but they don't believe in something about themselves and to each other because it's mom to dad, dad to mom, and they're not alive that way. One of them was alive before the other one. They aren't alive together, and they don't get along. They're not supposed to live in my house at all, and they don't get along that way. And that's how I can't solve that problem because they never really saw each other as natural predators and fought it to the death to get into a prison to solve that independently without me being in the emergency room and using the staff there to capture my parents, stole my keys, and have a home in Illinois. And there was another plane ticket to leave state of Illinois. I know that. I'm aware of that. but I can't say guarantee that I could get to the airport because I didn't have a car at the emergency room. My parents reported that it was their car and it was a license plate in their names, uh, that they can be in the car, and I don't live with them. And that was reported to the emergency room that that's illegal to do that to somebody. And the emergency room put me in a mental hospital. The emergency room did that. I don't blame my parents for that. My parents were called into the mental hospital for a meeting with the psychiatrist in there, and they also went to that, and they were due to be arrested again because they went willingly. They were due to be arrested and put in a prison so that they don't go into more karma because I was locked out of my house. I am not themselves. I am also not the staff of the hospitals. I don't afford that this creation went into that kind of an emergency to myself, that I have to live in this constant hell of she doesn't have a home. I have all the leverage to be deceased, and I am the top of the Godhead here. It's really not due for anyone to know that on the internet. I mean, I can know that because I am myself, but you don't need to know that on the internet, and I'm using the internet as leverage to decease myself. I am at this point. That's because Charles Toe didn't leave the apartment on the leverage of the police and their guns. Nope, he's still here because he's not afraid of getting shot. And I am afraid of getting, I'm not here that way. The police, when they say move, I move. I do what they say, even though they're low ones. They're too low. But I do what they say because they have handguns in their holsters and they walk around outside of their motor vehicles, which travel at high speed anywhere in traffic at any time. They're dangerous mentally to myself. I do move exactly on every word the police say. I say yes to them. And they know that about me. They love me the wrong way because they don't actually have that success with Charles Toe. He won't move that way. And they don't really afford anything else because I am myself right here in close proximity with Charles Toe. They don't afford the two contradictory problems. They don't make a response to the call for myself, and it's something that's complicated and thick like Charles Toe, and they have to be a certain way composed for myself. They're not really supposed to fight with him in front of me. The call to them is really an accident. I'm not doing a fight with the police, and they do treat me that way mostly. That I have to say mostly because the calls have been going on since the year 2011. I made a phone call in 2009. That was my first call to the police. I was only reporting to the dispatcher, but the police came to check the address. And I did just explain to them what I said to the dispatcher. And that was about the banking. I reported that I didn't want to bank the rent anymore in the year 2009. And I've been paying rent since 2009 all the way until 2025. And I called the police and said, I can't pay the rent anymore. And they can't stop it or don't or won't or didn't in any way, didn't stop the rent payments because I told the police I didn't want to rob the bank that way anymore. I didn't want to move the banking that way anymore. It's robbery because I called the police and reported it. It's robbery after that, at that point onwards of 2009 onwards. It was about October of 2009 onwards until 2025. Now I'm in April. I don't actually have that I can stop making the rent payments because the landlording is still moving the money, but they're not. If I say I don't want out from under the rent payments, it's true that it shouldn't be coming from me. It should be coming from the police. So I want they take over and do that. They won't. They didn't offer. They won't go to the bank. They won't threaten anyone. They just took my statement like they were taking a message as secretaries for God. I'm the secretary for God. They reported right back to God what I said to them. So using the internet as leverage to decease myself, that is really pointed out that it would be on television, on the news, and national news, international news, and I don't afford that I'm actually on the TV as deceased. I have the landlording is checking the address of 122 South 15th Street, apartment number 1, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89101. That's where this video is being made. And I don't afford anything on TV as deceased. I just don't afford it. It's not deceased to myself. It's deceased to the people on TV. They're deceased that way, but they're not deceased to myself. I am running this address and it is not paid for. I'm telling you, the police will not pay for it. And I don't know how we have TV that God is paying for it. It's exorbitant. I'm sorry, it's over the English language. I just think it's more than words. Yeah. Expensive, if you know what I mean. Additionally, there are cable charges, internet service provider charges that are, they're just impossible from my point of view.